What's going on, guys? My name is Steve. Thank you for stopping by my channel. Today we're going to be reacting to the grisly history of the Glasgow smile. This topic was recommended in the comments section of another video. They didn't really link to any videos. They just recommended that I check out something called the Glasgow grin. And when I typed in Glasgow grin, I noticed that some of the thumbnails were also saying Glasgow smile. So I'm guessing this is the same thing, the Glasgow grin and the Glasgow smile. And based off the thumbnails, this looks to be something very interesting, but possibly very horrifying that this took place with people in Scotland. I don't know anything about it other than based off the little bit the thumbnails are showing me and the titles, but I can kind of guess what they mean by Glasgow smile and Glasgow grin just by looking at, for example, the image that's here on the screen. And the thing that comes to mind when I see this is actually an actor that played on a show called Sons of Anarchy. I don't know if you guys in the UK have watched Sons of Anarchy. I believe the actor's name is Tommy. I can't remember his name. Tommy Flanagan, is that his name? Anyway, doesn't really matter. But he has this sort of scar alongside on the side of his face near his mouth. And I'm curious now, is this something that he actually went through? And, why would he have gone through this? I mean, anyway, guys, like I said, I don't know much about this. So let's just go ahead and dive in and learn about the grisly history of the Glasgow smile that was supposedly perpetrated by Scotland's early gangs.
Humans are unusually creative when it comes to dreaming up novel ways to inflict pain, and a few such methods are so gruesome that they have warranted an enduring place in history all their own. The Glasgow smile is one such method. Inflicted by cutting from one or both corners of the victim's mouth.
Oh, man.
Sometimes all the way to the ears. The so-called Glasgow smile originated in a dark period in the Scottish city of the same name. The victim's screams of pain only served to tear the cuts open further, resulting in a terrifying scar that marked the wearer for life. In fiction, the Glasgow smile, which is sometimes known as the Chelsea smile or the Chelsea grin, is most notoriously associated with the Joker, the iconic Batman villain.
That's
But it's been
true.
horrifyingly given to people in real life, too. How the Scottish slums birthed the Glasgow smile. The origins of the Glasgow smile is lost in the murky depths of Scotland's Industrial Revolution. Between 1830 and 1880, the population of the city of Glasgow more than doubled, thanks to farmers being driven off of small plots of land in the countryside. The establishment of numerous factories and dockyards in Glasgow made it one of the most popular destinations for these newly displaced workers, and what had been an important but small city was soon the largest in Scotland. Unfortunately, while the promise of work had attracted the new Glaswegians, safety, health and opportunity were sorely lacking. The new working class crowded into tenements plagued with disease, malnutrition, and poverty, a classic recipe for violent crime and desperation.
Yeah.
The end of World
Makes
War
sense.
I only compounded these problems. A collection of criminal organizations known as the Glasgow Razor Gangs controlled minor criminal empires in the city's East End and South Side, particularly the neighborhood known as the Gorbals.
Someone else in the comments recommended I check out the Scotland Razor Gangs. I've definitely got to look into that too. So by Razor Gangs, I'm putting two together, and maybe this is, are they the ones that perpetrated this? Although, unless they're still around in the last couple of decades, I don't know if Tommy, the actor I was talking about, if this would have been done by one of those gangs, or I don't know. Man, this is crazy. I've never heard about this before.
The rivalries between these groups followed religious lines, with gangs like the Protestant Billy Boys facing off against the Catholic Norman Conks, and these later gave rise to smaller, equally brutal groups who readily carved up their rivals with razors in endless back-and-forth wars.
Wow.
The most visible mark of retribution in these wars was the smile, which was easily and quickly performed with a razor, or a knife, or even a shard of glass. The scars indicated any Glaswegian who'd incurred the wrath of one of the city's many gangs.
So my question is, would they usually do one side, or would they do both sides? Man, that is... Oh, dude, that's horrible, man. It's just... I can, because he was talking about in the beginning how, as you opened your mouth before it was done healing, I guess, it would rip it open more and more. Like, oh, dude, that's horrifying, man.
Desperate to suppress Glasgow's growing reputation as a violent criminal underworld, city elders recruited Percy Silito, a veteran policeman of the United Kingdom, to combat the gangs. He succeeded and closed the 1930s with the various gangs broken up and their leaders in jail. But it was too late to destroy their gruesome trademark. Notorious examples of the Glasgow smile, from fascists to murder victims. The Glasgow smile wasn't reserved for the likes of Scotland's gangs. Indeed, politicians and murder victims alike were subject to the torturous act. One such example was William Joyce, also known as Lord Haw Haw despite his nickname. Lord Haw Haw was no aristocrat. Rather, he was born in Brooklyn, New York, and was the son of poor Irish Catholics. He later stumbled into the shadows of the Irish War of Independence before drifting over to England. There, he discovered a rabid passion for fascism and became a steward for the British fascists. One of the British fascists' favorite activities was to act as a security force for Conservative Party politicians, and this is what Joyce was doing on the evening of October 22, 1924, in Lambeth, London. As he stood watch, an unknown attacker leapt at him from behind, striking him on the face before disappearing.
Wow.
Joyce was left with disturbingly deep and long gash along the right side of his face that would, ultimately, heal into a Glasgow smile.
Wow. Like, this is even farther back than I thought. Like, I was thinking it would, like, go to maybe here. This is all the way back to his ear, basically, his entire face. Is it on the other side as well? That's something else I'm curious about. Did they always do both sides of the face, or was it sometimes just one side of the face? And that's amazing that, this seems like, are they literally going, when they're cutting them, are they just cutting kind of the surface? Are they cutting all the way into the mouth? Like all the way? Because that seems like that would be extremely hard to heal because of, bacteria of the mouth and whatnot. But I don't know.
Joyce would then go on to hold a prominent position in Oswald Mosley's British Union of Fascists, which espoused Nazism leading up to World War II. His scar, which he called Die Schramm with a scratch, would be a telltale sign for the Allies when they smashed into Germany in 1945, just months before he was hanged as a traitor. The Glasgow smile was also by no means bound to Britain alone. In 1934, serial killer and so-called Brooklyn vampire Albert Fish's reign of terror ended in New York City. The seemingly mild-mannered man had a grisly habit of eating children, as well as branding one with the Glasgow smile. Fish first murdered and ate 10-year-old Grace Budd, and the investigation into her disappearance led to more morbid victims of his. Billy Gaffney, for instance, was Fish's next unfortunate victim. In February 1927, the 4-year-old boy failed to return home. Eventually, suspicion fell on Fish, who gleefully confirmed that, among other heinous actions, he had cut off Gaffney's, ear's nose, slit his mouth from ear to ear. Although Fish would stand trial for the murder of Grace Budd in 1935, Gaffney's family would never receive even the small comfort of having a body to bury. His remains were never discovered, and the terrifying image of the little boy with the disfigured face would forever after be a dark footnote in the story of one of America's earliest known serial killers.
Wow.
The infamous Black Dahlia murder victim was found with a Chelsea grin.
Black Dahlia. Okay.
Perhaps the best known instance of the Glasgow smile is the one which disfigured the beautiful Elizabeth Short, known after her death as the Black Dahlia. Short was a waitress and aspiring actress in Los Angeles when her mutilated body was discovered one January morning in 1947. The extent of Short's wounds made national headlines, cut cleanly in two at the waist, her limbs bearing extensive knife cuts and set in a bizarre pose, and her face cut neatly from the edges of her mouth right up to her earlobes. The grisly, haunting grin that slashed across her face was kept out of newspaper photographs. Despite a media frenzy and a mammoth investigation that involved over 150 suspects, Short's killer was never identified. To this day, her death remains one of the most disturbing cold cases in criminal history.
Wow.
In the cruelest twist of fate, Short never became known for the role she was vying for, but rather for the hideous manner in which she was murdered and the Glasgow smile which adorned her beautiful face.
That's horrible, man.
The eerie smile sees a resurgence. Today, the Glasgow smile has seen a resurgence in its country of origin. In the 1970s, gangs rose around the United Kingdom's soccer teams that...
I was just wondering that, because I'm wondering, like, did it? I know it couldn't have just disappeared forever. If that actor I'm talking about, if that's what he went through, I don't know for sure. Now that I see this is what the Glasgow grin is, it kind of looks like what he has. And so I was really curious if it was like still around.
Caused violence at games across the country. Meanwhile, the organization of white hate groups increased in the United Kingdom. Out of this toxic brew came the Chelsea Headhunters, a group linked to Chelsea Football Club, who quickly established a reputation for extreme, drawing on the tradition of terror inspired by Glasgow's fearsome gangs of the Industrial Revolution. The Headhunters adopted the Glasgow smile as their own trademark, calling it the Chelsea smile or the Chelsea grin. In fevered battles at soccer matches, the Headhunters would often face off with hated rivals from other London districts, particularly South London's equally Millwall, and these face-offs would result in riotous brawls which even the most hardened police were hard-pressed to halt. In London's King's Road, near Chelsea's Stamford Bridge Stadium, the Headhunters became notorious for administering the grin to any who crossed them, whether the offenders were members of their own crew who'd slipped up or loyalists of opposing factions. This grisly meme is so pervasive that it can even be found in medical textbooks that feature recommended methods of treatment. In 2011, it was estimated that someone in Glasgow suffered the serious facial injury once every 6 hours, which suggests that the grisly punishment isn't going anywhere anytime soon.
Once every 6 hours? Wow.
2011, it was
wow, guys. Once every 6 hours. That's horrifying. So, I guess that's crazy, man. Like that is horrifying to know that just some person can be walking down the street and this could happen to them by one of these gang members, man. That's horrifying. So, if it happens every 6 hours in Scotland, supposedly, I'm guessing, does anybody that's watching in Scotland, do you know someone who's actually gone through this? And so, like, how deep does this go? This looks very deep. It looks like it's almost into the mouth itself. I obviously can't tell exactly, but this is insane. Wow. That's horrifying. I don't even know what to say, man. I'm going to have to check out those razor gangs because now that I know what this is, I've got to kind of look into the history of those razor gangs and see what they were about. Obviously, I know that they did this, but I'm kind of curious a little bit. I kind of want to know a little bit more about them. But wow, guys, this was pretty heavy. Didn't expect this really. So, anyways, thank you so much for stopping by, guys. Please click that like button and feel free to drop your comments or suggestions about this video or others. Like I said, if you know anyone who's gone through this, I'd be interested in hearing a little bit about that story in the comments and just kind of what happened, why it happened, and things like that. Yeah, guys, thank you so much for stopping by. Until next time, peace.